She always sat alone near the edge of the school playground, just outside the white lines where the soccer games were played. Her hands resting on her knees, head slightly tilted as if listening to something the others couldn't hear. The other kids ran past her, chasing balls, laughing loudly, calling each other's names. But they never called hers. They didn't even ask if she wanted to play. She had been blind since birth. She couldn't see their faces, their smiles, or the sky. They pointed at when clouds looked like animals, but she could hear their voices, the way the ball bounced and rolled. The wind rushing past when someone sprinted by. She imagined all the shapes and colors in her own way, quietly. With a kind of hope inside her that she never talked about, most days she stayed quiet, just listening, and smiling now and then when someone passed close enough for her to feel their shadow. But when kids whispered things like she can't even see or don't let her near the ball, she heard that too. They didn't say it to be cruel, not always. They were just kids who didn't understand. Teachers were kind. They helped her walk through the hallways. They gave her extra time during lessons, but they never once asked if she wanted to play, if she wanted to be part of the game, to everyone. She was the sweet, quiet girl with the cane who read with her fingers and sat near the wall. But what they didn't know was that inside her, there was a storm of dreams. She dreamed of running without needing to count steps, of hearing the ball roll and knowing it was meant for her. She dreamed of kicking it hard and feeling the world respond. She had that dream every night before sleep, sometimes even while sitting quietly at school. One afternoon, something different happened. She was sitting in her usual spot, her fingers tracing the edge of her backpack, when a soccer ball rolled toward her and lightly touched her foot. She felt the soft bump, the sound it made when it stopped, and she froze, unsure if someone would come grab it and leave. Then a voice spoke, a boy's voice. "Hey, want to try kicking it?" She turned her head in his direction, surprised. He wasn't mocking her, not teasing, just asking like it was normal. She said nothing at first, just stood up slowly, uncertain. He guided her foot gently to the ball, then stepped back. "Just kick forward, it's right there," he said. She took a breath, then lifted her foot and kicked. It wasn't strong, and the ball only rolled a few feet, but the sound it made, and the way he laughed, not in a mean way, but in a proud way, made her chest feel warm. "You did it," he said. No one had ever said that to her before about something like this. That night at home, she asked her parents, "Can I learn to play soccer?" They looked at her with wide eyes, surprised. Her mom sat down beside her and held her hand. "Of course you can," she said gently. Though her voice trembled just a little, her dad smiled and nodded. "We'll figure it out," he said. But in their hearts, they were worried, not because they didn't believe in her, but because they feared the world wouldn't let her try. The next day, she returned to the edge of the field, hoping the same boy would be there, and he was. He saw her standing there, waiting, and he waved, then remembered and walked over. "Want to try again?" he asked. She nodded, smiling this time. They practiced every afternoon. He clapped from different spots so she could follow the sound. He told her how many steps to take, how to turn, where the ball was. Sometimes she missed, sometimes she tripped. But she kept coming back. She learned to feel the grass under her feet, how it changed near the goal, how the air moved when others ran by. She was building a map in her mind, one only she could see. Some kids watched from a distance, whispering to each other, "She's trying to play now. She can't even see the goal," but she kept going. Because every kick, every step, every small cheer from that boy made her feel something she had never felt before, like she belonged on that field. One day, she kicked the ball, and it hit the fence with a loud clang. Everyone turned to look. She laughed, really laughed. And the boy cheered louder than anyone. She stood there, sweaty, tired, but full of light. not because she was the best, but because for the first time, she wasn't just the girl who sat and listened. She was the girl who kicked, the one who tried, and deep inside, something had started to grow. Not just a wish, but a fire, a belief that one day, she wouldn't just play, she would win. That night, after the kick that made the fence ring and the boy cheer, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She lay in bed with her hands under her pillow and a small smile on her face. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was just someone watching the world. She felt like she was part of something. The next morning, she woke up early, even before her alarm. And she felt excited to go to school. Usually, mornings were quiet for her, just the same steps, the same routines. But now something had changed. There was something waiting for her after class. Something that made her heart beat faster. She sat through math and reading, listening closely but thinking about the ball, the field, and that voice calling to her with kindness. When lunch ended, she didn't waste time. She grabbed her bag and walked slowly to the playground, tapping her cane gently. Listening carefully, he was already there. The same boy from yesterday, and he was kicking the ball lightly. Waiting, he called out when he saw her, and she smiled as she moved toward his voice. They didn't talk much at first, just started where they left off. He placed the ball in front of her again, told her how far it was, and then clapped so she could follow the sound. She took 2 steps and kicked. This time, it went farther than before. "Nice one," he said, laughing a little, not in a mean way, but with joy. She felt something like pride rise inside her, like she was building something small but real. They kept doing it again and again. He would tell her how to turn, how to stand, how to aim. Sometimes she got it right. Sometimes the ball rolled sideways, but she never gave up. He didn't rush her or tell her to stop. He just kept helping her try. Each day after that, they met at the same place, and each time, she learned something new. How to listen better, how to move with more confidence, how to trust her steps. The more they practiced, the more she felt like the field was becoming hers. Not just some faraway place for other kids, but a space she could know with her feet and her heart. But not everyone liked it. Some of the other students would stop and whisper, "Why is she even trying? She'll never make the team. She's just wasting time." She heard it all, even when they thought she couldn't, and each time it stung a little, but she didn't let it stop her. She started coming home with grass stains on her pants, a few small scrapes on her arms, and dirt on her shoes. Her parents noticed but didn't say much at first. They just looked at each other, quietly worried but also surprised. One evening, while she was helping set the table, her dad finally asked, "You've been practicing a lot, haven't you?" She nodded. "Yeah." Her mom looked at her gently and said, "Are the other kids nice?" She shrugged. "Some are, some aren't." They didn't push more. They just let her talk when she wanted to. That weekend, she asked her parents a big question. "Can we find a soccer ball that makes sound?" They looked confused at first. But then she explained, "I need to hear where it is so I can practice better." Her dad searched online for hours that night, and the next day, he showed her a video of a ball with little bells inside, like this. He asked. She nodded with a big smile. A few days later, a small package came in the mail. And when she shook it gently, it jingled softly. She took it to school and showed it to the boy. He picked it up, smiled, and said, "Now this is cool." They tried it right away, and the sound helped her so much. Now she could follow the ball with her ears and feet more clearly. She felt stronger, more connected. A girl from another class watched them from a distance. One day she walked over and asked, "Can I try?" The blind girl nodded, and they took turns, laughing as the ball jingled across the field. That was the first time more than one person joined them, and it felt good, like she wasn't just practicing anymore, but building something that others could be part of too. but there was still doubt from others. Teachers gave polite smiles, but didn't believe she could play for real. Some students still laughed quietly, saying it was just a game between friends. But she knew something they didn't. She was changing not just in how she moved, but in how she believed in herself. And deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "You're not just kicking a ball. You're kicking down walls," as the sun set. Behind the school that day, she stood on the field with the boy and the girl who had joined them. The bell ball lay still between them. She reached down, picked it up, and held it to her chest. "I want to play," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Not just pretend or pass time, she wanted to be on the team, in the game. Running with the others and showing the world she wasn't sitting on the sidelines anymore. She was ready. She just needed one chance, and she would make sure they heard her this time. The season moved forward, and the days began to feel more alive. More colorful even to her, who had never seen colors with her eyes. But she felt them in the warmth of the sun, in the way the wind brushed her face during early morning practice, in the laughter of her teammates as they stretched and tied their shoes in the grass. She was no longer the new one, or the strange one. She was simply a player now, one of them. Part of the team in every way that mattered. She had her own jersey, her own number, her own space on the bench and in the hearts of her teammates. And even though some challenges never went away, like people staring too long or asking silly questions, she didn't mind as much anymore. Because when the whistle blew and the ball rolled across the field, none of that mattered. It was just her, the game, and the sound of her own heartbeat. As the final game of the season approached, the team was nervous. This one would decide who moved into the next round, who would be remembered, who had a shot at something more everyone wanted. To win, and she did too, more than ever. Not just for herself, but for the team who had accepted her, believed in her, stood beside her. The coach gathered them before the match and said, "Play with heart, play together. Play like you already earned it." She stood quietly at the back, hands folded, listening to every word. Her mind focused, her steps steady. When the game started, she sat on the bench, not as a punishment. Just part of the rotation, she was fine with that. Ready when needed, the first half went by fast. Both teams were strong, fast, sharp with their passes. The score stayed even, and tension filled the field. Then, with 10 minutes left, the coach called her name. "Get ready," he said. She stood up, tied her shoelaces tighter, and handed her sound ball to the assistant. "I'll use the regular one today," she said, quietly but firmly. He looked surprised. "You sure?" She nodded. "I've learned the sounds well enough now," as she stepped onto the field. The crowd murmured softly, people pointing, recognizing her, some clapping already, even before she touched the ball. The referee gave a small nod, and the game resumed. She listened closely, her body still, heart steady, waiting. Then the ball came near. A short pass from a teammate bounced her way, and she met it with her foot, not too hard. Just enough to guide it toward the left wing. Another player picked it up and pushed forward. She followed the sound, followed the rhythm of the game, and moved with it. Every step felt familiar now. Every movement felt right. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was responding with 5 minutes left. The score was still tied. Then a defender on the other team slipped, and the ball bounced loose in the middle. She turned her head slightly, listening to the sound. There it was, rolling toward her. Fast but not out of reach. She ran forward, trusted her steps, trusted the field she had come to know like a second home, and swung her foot. The ball soared sharp, clean, powerful. It hit the goalpost, once clanged, then dropped inside the net. The crowd didn't scream at first. They gasped, stunned. Then came the cheer. Loud, wild, beautiful. Her teammates rushed over, shouting. Some hugged her, others clapped her back. She stood there smiling, a little out of breath, but glowing. From the inside, it wasn't just a goal. It was a final answer to every doubt, every whisper, every look that ever said she wasn't enough. When the final whistle blew, her team had won. Not just the game, but respect, trust, belief. And she had won something even more important, her place in the world. Later that evening, the team gathered at the school gym for a small celebration. There was music, snacks, loud voices, and laughter bouncing off the walls. The coach stood up with a piece of paper and said a few words about every player. Then he paused, looked toward her, and said, "There's one player who changed how I think about this game." He looked down, then back up. She didn't just learn how to play, she taught the rest of us how to listen, how to trust, how to believe again. He handed her a small medal, nothing fancy, just silver with a ribbon. But to her, it felt heavier than gold. She held it in her hands and smiled. After the event, when the building grew quiet, and her parents came to pick her up, she walked slowly toward the car, tired but full of something that couldn't be described. In the back seat, holding the medal in her lap, she whispered to herself, "They said I couldn't play." She paused, then smiled and added, "So I closed my eyes and proved them wrong." And in her heart, she knew this wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning of many more things she would one day do, because now she didn't just believe in the game. She believed in herself, and that changes everything. Word started to spread around the school, not loud, not fast, but quietly. Like a whisper passing from ear to ear, some students started noticing the girl with the cane wasn't sitting alone anymore. She was on the field, moving, kicking, trying at. First, they watched from far away, leaning on fences or sitting on the low stone wall near the playground. Some of them laughed, not in a cruel way, but the way people laugh when they see something they don't understand. "She's blind, right?" Someone asked, "How can she even know where the ball is?" "She's just playing around," said another. "She won't be on the team." She heard all of it. Even when people think blind kids can't hear whispers, they can. Their hearing is sharp, stronger than most, because it has to be. She didn't say anything back. She just kept practicing. The boy who helped her came every day without fail. Sometimes he was tired, sometimes he had homework, but he never skipped. He always showed up with the same energy, clapping from the goalpost, guiding her steps, laughing when she made mistakes, cheering when she got it right. Sometimes, when she missed the ball or tripped over her own feet, she'd laugh too, not out of shame, but because she was learning, and it felt good. But some days were harder than others. One day, while she was about to kick, a group of kids passed by. One of them said loud enough for her to hear, "Why is she even trying? She's not one of us." That one hit her deeper than she wanted to admit. She paused, her foot hovering in the air, then slowly let it fall without kicking the ball. The boy noticed and walked over. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but she didn't smile. He didn't press her with more questions. He just said, "You've already done more than they ever will." That sentence stayed with her the whole day. She repeated it in her mind again and again, letting it drown out the cruel voice from earlier, that night, while brushing her teeth. She stared at the place on the wall where the mirror hung. She couldn't see her reflection, but she could feel herself standing taller. She touched her cheek, smiled a little, and thought, "I'm not just trying, I'm doing." The next day, someone unexpected joined them on the field. A girl from another class, quiet and curious. She came over slowly and asked, "Can I try with you?" The blind girl turned toward her voice and nodded. And just like that, the circle grew from 2 to 3. The new girl wasn't the best at soccer either, but she laughed when she messed up and clapped for the blind girl when she made good kicks. Now the field didn't feel so empty anymore. There was movement, sound, joy, and something else possibility. Later that week, A teacher walked by and paused for a long time, watching them practice. She didn't say anything, just stood there. For a while, then walked away, but the girl noticed. She could feel when someone was paying attention, and for the first time, a teacher saw her not as the quiet, blind student, but as a kid who was trying to be part of the game. Still, not everyone was happy. During lunch, the blind girl sat at the corner table with her tray when a student came over and said, "You know there's tryouts for the school team next month, right?" She nodded. The student scoffed. "Don't waste a spot." Then walked away. She didn't cry, but something inside her felt heavy again. Like the old feeling of being left behind. That evening, she didn't tell her parents about it. She just practiced longer with the sound ball in the backyard. She kicked it again and again, counting the steps between each swing. She told herself, "It doesn't matter what they say. I'm going to show them later that night." Her mom came to the backyard to call her in for dinner and saw her kicking the ball with fierce focus. "You've been out here a while," her mom said softly. "I have to practice." The girl replied, not looking up. Her mom stood there for a moment, then said, "I believe in you." That small sentence was enough to keep her going. The next morning at school, she stood outside the gym door, where the tryout poster was. Taped up, she couldn't read it with her eyes, so the boy read it for her. "Tryouts in 2 weeks. All students welcome." He looked at her and smiled. "You're gonna do it, right?" She nodded. "Yes," she said, and she meant it. The same students who whispered before now watched her with something different in their voices: curiosity. Maybe even a little respect. They didn't know yet, but they would soon, because this girl wasn't playing for fun anymore. She was playing to prove something, not just to the school or the team, but to herself, that she belonged. That she was more than the quiet girl in the corner. She was a player, and soon they would see it too. The day of the tryouts came faster than she expected. For 2 weeks straight, she had practiced every day after school. Rain or shine, her shoes were worn down at the toes, and her socks were always stained with grass. Her knees had small bruises, and her legs felt sore most nights, but she didn't care. Her parents helped her pack her bag the night before. They put in an extra water bottle, a towel, and her special ball with the tiny bells inside. They didn't say much, but their eyes were full of thoughts. Some scared, some proud. That morning she woke up before the sun. She sat at the edge of her bed and tied her laces carefully. Her hands moved slowly but surely. She didn't need to see them anymore. She knew her routine by heart. When she got to school, she felt the air was different. Louder than usual, filled with excitement and nerves. A group of students stood near the gym, some bouncing balls, others stretching or talking big about how many goals they'd score. No one noticed her at first, just another face in the crowd, or so they thought, until they saw the white cane in her hand. Some looked surprised, others confused. "Is she trying out too?" Someone whispered, "Is this some kind of joke?" Said another, but she stood still, calm, holding her ball close to her chest. The boy who trained with her came over and gave her a quick nod. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded once. He knew that meant yes. A teacher blew the whistle and told everyone to line up on the field. The coach stood tall, arms crossed, with a clipboard in hand. He had been at the school for years, and everyone knew he took the team seriously. "Let's see what you've got," the coach called out. Players were called one by one to show their skills: dribbling, passing, shooting. The field was loud with shouting, cheering, and clapping. Then it went quiet for a moment. Her name was called. She stepped forward. The coach looked up, eyes narrowing slightly when he saw the cane. "You sure about this?" he asked in a firm voice. She nodded again. "Yes." He paused, then turned to the assistant coach. "Get the ball ready." She handed them her special ball, the one with the soft bell inside. There were a few chuckles in the crowd, a few unsure. Faces, but the boy walked to the goalpost, clapped twice, and called her name. That was the signal they had practiced so many times. She counted her steps, just like in practice. The sound of the bell helped her lock in. One kick, the ball rolled forward with control. She followed it, steady and sure. She stopped and gave it a strong kick toward the left side. The assistant coach had to step aside as it rolled with power toward the corner. A few gasps came from the group. That was lucky. Someone muttered. The coach raised a hand. Again he said, she reset, counted, kicked. This time the ball hit a cone and knocked it over. The coach scribbled something on his clipboard. Then came the passing drill. The boy stood in the middle and clapped lightly. She passed the ball directly to him with precision. Not once, but 3 times in a row. Now it was time for the final part, shooting. They set up cones and asked each player to shoot from outside the box. Some kids missed, some got close, some made it in. When it was her turn, the boy clapped from the left post. She locked in on the sound. She raised her foot and kicked. The ball sailed, low and fast, and hit the back of the net. There was silence, then soft clapping. One student clapped, then another. Even the coach gave a small nod. She stood there, trying to read the mood, but all she could feel was the sweat on her neck and the smile trying to rise on her face. As tryouts ended, the coach spoke to the group. "Thank you, everyone. Results will be posted tomorrow." He looked at her, paused, then added, "No one's getting special treatment. Understand that." She nodded once again. "I don't want special," she said quietly. "I just want fair." As the students walked away, some whispered again. But this time the tone had changed. She actually made that shot. She might get picked. She sat on the grass alone for a few minutes, holding her ball. The boy came over and sat beside her. "Whatever happens," he said, "you did more than they ever expected." She smiled a little, but not more than I expected. She whispered back, "That night she couldn't sleep. Her legs ached, her heart thumped in her chest. She kept thinking of the moment the ball hit the net. Not because it proved anything to others, but because it proved something to herself. She belonged there, and tomorrow, when the list was posted, she'd know if the world finally agreed. The next morning, her hands were shaking as she held her cane, walking slowly toward the school hallway where the team results were going to be posted. It was early. The building was quiet, just the soft sound of shoes on the floor and doors. Being unlocked by teachers, her heart was beating so loud she could almost hear it. She didn't need someone to tell her what this meant. For others, maybe it was just a game, just a team, but for her, it was something more. It was her way of stepping out of the dark space people kept her in. It was her way of finally saying, "I can," in a world that often said, "You can't." She reached the board slowly, where the names were pinned. There were others around, whispering, pointing, smiling, or frowning. The boy who trained with her was already there. He looked at the list, then turned toward her. He didn't say anything right away. He just let out a breath and nodded slowly. "You're in," he said. Gently, she stood still, not sure if she heard right. "Your name is there?" he repeated. "You made the team." Her legs felt weak. For a second, she didn't smile big or jump up like other kids might have. Instead, she just breathed in, held it, and let it out slowly. "I knew I could," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. But she also knew this was just the start. Making the team was only step one. Now she had to prove she belonged there, not just as a name on paper, but as someone who could play, pass, run, score, and grow. At practice that afternoon, the coach gave her a hard look. Not unkind, just serious. "No special treatment." He said again, "I don't want any," she answered calmly. The other players didn't quite know how to treat her. They weren't mean, just unsure. Some didn't talk to her at all, afraid to say the wrong thing. Others kept distance, thinking maybe she would slow things down. But she didn't complain, not once. She tied her shoes tighter, felt the field with her feet, listened to every sound, and when it was her turn, she gave it her all. She still used her sound ball during warm-ups, and the boy helped her mark certain spots on the field by clapping or tapping cones. She counted steps from center to corner, from sideline to box, and slowly built a map inside her mind. Each practice, she got a little better. One afternoon, the team did passing drills. She listened, then passed the ball cleanly to a teammate. He caught it, surprised, then passed it back. She returned it again, smooth and quick. The coach shouted, "Good." And for the first time, a few heads turned not with doubt, but with respect. Later in the week, the team had two teams. One field, she was placed on the second team. Some players sighed, thinking they would lose with her, but she didn't care about their doubt anymore. She had trained for this. She knew what she could do. During the match, the ball rolled near her, and she followed the bell inside. She tapped it gently, turned, and passed it across the field to another player. It was a perfect pass, one that led to a goal. The whole team turned and looked at her, surprised. One of them ran over and gave her a high five without saying anything. That one small moment was more powerful than any word as the scrimmage continued. She moved like she belonged, not fast, not flashy, but focused. She knew every part of the field by sound, by feel, by memory, and near the end, when the ball came to her again, she took a strong step and kicked. The ball rolled past the goalie and hit the net softly. A goal, her first one during a real match setting. No one said anything for a few seconds. Then the boy clapped. Others joined in, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. That night, she sat at the dinner table with her parents. They asked, "How was practice?" She smiled, this time wider. "I scored," she said. Simply, they froze, looked at each other, then smiled back. "You did?" Her dad asked. She nodded, and it felt real. She said, "Like I wasn't just trying, I was actually playing." From that day, things started changing. A few teammates began talking to her more. One offered to walk beside her to the locker room. Another started asking her advice on passing drills. The coach didn't smile much, but now he called her name during plays. He treated her like a player, not like someone fragile. And even the students in the hallways started seeing her differently. "She's on the team," they whispered. "She scored during practice. She's actually good." But for her, the biggest change wasn't what they thought. It was how she felt for the first time in her life. She wasn't proving herself to others. She had already proved it to herself. And now she wanted more. This wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning, because now she had something new growing inside her. Not just hope, but hunger. She wanted to get better. She wanted to win. She wanted to help her team and show the world that vision isn't only through eyes, sometimes. It's through heart. From that day onward, things felt different at school. She still used her cane in the halls, still moved carefully through the crowds. But now, when people saw her, they didn't just move aside, they nodded. Some even smiled. Before, she was known as the quiet blind girl, the one who always sat on the edge, who never joined games, but now they said things like, "She's on the team, she passed better than me. She scored yesterday," and she heard it all. Not because she needed praise, but because it meant something was changing. She wasn't being pitied anymore. She was being respected. Practice became harder too. Coach stopped going easy on her. Now he shouted her name like everyone else, made her run sprints, made her repeat passing drills until her legs burned. And she loved it, because it meant she was part of the team, not an exception, not a guest, just a teammate. Some days were tough, of course. Sometimes she kicked the ball in the wrong direction, or lost track of where she was on the field. Sometimes the sun was too hot or the grass too wet. And there were moments when the others moved faster, sharper, and she felt herself fall behind. But she didn't stop, she adjusted. She practiced longer, came early, stayed late. She asked questions, repeated drills. Listened to the sound of footsteps around her to understand spacing, and slowly she began to feel like the field was not just a place, was a language. And she was learning to speak it in her own way. One afternoon, the team played a friendly match against another school. It wasn't part of the main season. Just practice, but it felt real. The players wore jerseys. The field had fresh lines, and students sat on benches cheering. She was nervous, her hands trembling as she tightened her shoelaces. "You okay?" the boy beside her asked. She nodded. Even though her stomach felt like it was full of butterflies, "I've got this," she whispered. More to herself than anyone else, when the game started, she stayed alert, listening to the calls, the movement, the rhythm of the ball. She didn't try to chase everything, she waited, listened, found her moments, and when the ball came near, she moved in fast, kicked it forward, passed it cleanly, and backed away. The crowd started noticing. People leaned forward, whispering, "She knows where the ball is. She's playing smart." In the second half, the score was tied. The coach gave a signal and called her name. She moved upfield, closer to the goal than before. She knew what it meant. He trusted her. The moment came when a pass rolled near her, not too fast, not too slow. She heard the jingle inside the ball, counted 3 steps, and swung her foot. The ball flew forward, bounced once, and slipped past the goalie into the net. Cheers exploded from the bench. Her teammates ran toward her, clapping her back, high-fiving her. Even the other team looked surprised and impressed. She stood there, slightly shaking, her breath quick. She couldn't see the ball in the net, but she didn't have to. She felt it, and that feeling was something she would remember forever. After the match, the coach walked over. Didn't say much, just put a hand on her shoulder. "Well played," he said. And that short sentence felt bigger than any trophy. At school the next day, things had shifted even more. People stopped her in the hallway just to say, "Good game." One girl even asked, "Can you show me how you aim so well?" She smiled politely, still getting used to all this attention. She never asked to be the center of anything. She just wanted to play. But now, others were watching not out of doubt, but out of admiration. The principal even announced her goal. Over the school speaker during morning assembly said something about breaking barriers and inspiring students. Her name echoed through the halls. And she just sat there quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Smiling to herself after school, she stayed back to clean up cones from the practice field. She liked staying after everyone else left. It gave her time to feel the grass, listen to the quiet, and think. The boy came back to help her, and they didn't talk much, just picked up equipment in silence. As they walked off the field, she said, "Do you think I'm really part of the team now?" He looked at her with a smile and said, "You were always part of it, you just had to make them see it." And in that moment, she realized something. She hadn't changed just how others saw her. She had changed how she saw herself. Stronger, faster, more sure, more bold. She used to sit on the edge, thinking maybe someday she could join. Now she was in the game, scoring goals, making friends, and building her place step by step, not because she could see the field with her eyes, but because she felt it with every part of her being. And the season wasn't even over yet. There was still more to come. More games, more challenges, more chances to grow, and she was ready for all of it.